All right. Then we get to 24. O you who believe, respond to God and the messenger when he calls you unto that which will give you life, and know that God comes between a man and his heart, and that unto him shall you be gathered. There's a line that a lot of wannabe apologists, I should say, like to throw at me under these videos, which is when the Bible says that Jesus came not to bring peace but the sword, that he came to divide father and mother, brother and sister. That's a very metaphorical, and it's supposed to mean that the word will divide, because Jesus here means logos, and logos means the word. It's not a literal sword. That being said, this is not dividing people between the word. This is dividing a man between his own heart. His mind and his heart will no longer be on the same side of each other. That's a little bit of a different statement. I don't like the idea of God being the author of confusion. And I know that some Muslims say that it's not what the Quran says, but more than a few apologists says that it is what it says. Now, there are Christian Calvinists who believe that God does author confusion, but most Christians nowadays believe that God is the author of truth and simplicity, not confusion. 28. And know that your property and your children are only a trial, and that God, with him, is a great reward. Again, this doesn't sound good. I'm not sure which chapter it was. It might have been this chapter. It might have been a few chapters earlier. But I had to stop reading the Quran for a month after reading it, because I did not like what it said so much. I don't know if it was this one or if it was one from a few chapters, from a few surahs earlier. But I had to take a month away from the Quran before I could get back into it. It might have been this one. I'm not sure. It might be Surah 9 that I'm thinking of. So let's go to 29. O you who believe, if you reverence God, he will make you a criterion and absolve you from your evil deeds and forgive you. And the God is possessed of tremendous bounty. That sounds pretty normal. A lot of times I've heard apologists argue that Christians say stuff like this, and they get angry at Christians saying stuff like this. This is in the Quran. Go 34. What have they to keep God from punishing them, while they turn from the sacred mosque, though they are not its protectors? Its protectors are none but the reverent, but most of them know not. The sacred mosque was under pagan control at this time, if I'm not mistaken, or if not, a little bit just before this. So I'm kind of curious, what is this trying to say about that mosque? Anyone want to explain that to me? Go ahead. Okay, let's check out 36. Truly, those who disbelieve spend their wealth to turn from the way of God. They will spend it. Then it will be a source of regret for them, and they will be overcome, and the disbelievers will be gathered into hell, that God may separate the bad from the good, and place the bad one upon the other, and heap them all together, and place them in hell. It is they who are the losers. Okay, my note says against foreign mercenaries. That's obviously from one of the hadiths. And since I'm not referencing the hadiths to make these videos go faster, all right, I'm just going to move forward. All right, 39. And fight them until there is no strife, and religion is wholly for God. But if they desist, and then truly God sees whatsoever they do. The way that the Quran has portrayed God up to now is a very warrior God, or at least the prophet as a warrior prophet. And I understand that in the Old Testament, especially in the early Old Testament, there's a lot of that. But once you get to the later Old Testament, and of course the New Testament, you don't see that at all until maybe Revelations. But Revelations is a different thing. A lot of people will be very uncomfortable with the idea of a warrior God. or even a warrior prophet. And if you don't know that by now, then you haven't been on the internet. Some people view this as Islam's stated goals. Again, I'm not reading the hadith for this video to make it go faster, so I don't know if that's true. But assuming the hadith that was referenced is correlated here, then yeah, that's kind of a scary thought, just in general. You know, there's a big difference between go and spread the word. There's just a little different. It's a little slightly different message, or a little slightly different mission. Sounds the same, but there's a bit of a difference in it. Especially when it sounds like forced conversion, which I know the Quran says not to do. But I'm just saying, when it sounds like that, it does get scary for people who are not of the same faith. 41. And know that whatsoever you take as spoils, a fifth is for God and the messenger, and for kinsfolk, orphans, the indigent, and the traveler. If you believe in God and what we sent down upon our servant on the day of discrimination, the day the two hosts met, and God is powerful over all things. When you were on the near slope and they were on the flat slope, and the caravan was below you, and had you made a tryst with each other, you would have failed the tryst. But it came to pass, so that God may conclude a matter that was to be done, so that whatsoever should perish perishes according to a clear proof, and whosoever should live lives according to a clear proof, and truly God is hearing, knowing. Okay. I don't know why I highlighted that. Okay, 53. This is because God never changes a blessing by which he blesses a people until they change what is in themselves, and because God is hearing, knowing. My note says clauses and conditions. Again, I'm assuming that's from a hadith that I read. But again, I'm not getting into the hadith anymore because I'm trying to get through this because my new job will not allow me as much time to do the kind of research I was doing for these videos before. All right, 55. Truly the worst of beasts in the sight of God are those who have disbelieved and will not believe. Those among them with whom thou madest a pact, and who then break their pact every time, and who are not reverent. This will not help you convert any atheist, I'll tell you that right now, because you're directly attacking atheism and those who are atheists and calling them the worst of beast. That's not good PR. 57. So if thou comes upon them in war, use them to scatter those who will come after them, that happily they might be reminded. Very Machiavellian. 60. And prepare for them what you can of strength and horses, tethered, frightening thereby the enemy of God and your enemy, and others besides them, who you know not. God knows them. Whatsoever you spend in the way of God shall be paid unto you in full, and you shall not be wronged. So, in my note, I mentioned Persians and the Byzantines. So, according to Muhammad ibn Ja'ad al-Tabari, this has to do later on with the Persians and the Byzantines, and may even be talking about the jinn. Someone want to make those connections for me? I'd appreciate it. 64. O prophet, God suffices thee and those believers who follow thee. O prophet, rouse the believers to fight. If there be 20 steadfast among you, they shall overcome 200. And if there be 100 of you, they shall overcome 1,000 of those who disbelieve, because they are a people who understand not. Now God has lightened your burden, for he knows that there is weakness in you. And if there be 100 steadfast among you, they shall overcome 200. And if there be 1,000, they shall overcome 2,000. By God's leave. And God is with the steadfast. My note says battle commandos. Reading 3 Qurans and studying a bunch of hadith and looking at the notes make these videos a lot easier to just talk through. I'll say that. 67 through 69. This is concerning prisoners of war. It is not for a prophet to take captives until he overwhelms in the land. You desire the ephemeralities of this world, while God desires the hereafter. And God is mighty, wise. Were it not for a decree that had already gone forth from God, a great punishment would have befallen you for what you took. So consume the spoils you have taken lawfully in a good way and reverence God. Truly God is forgiving, merciful. To be honest with you, outside of the opening part that was a little troublesome and problematic for modern readers, most of this reads like some Psalms. So an interesting chapter. And let's move on to the next one.